They'll do things because others are doing them, because there is a trend, or they just see everyone going in that direction, so they think that must be a good direction to go. You should not give up unless you're forced to give up. I'm actually an engineer, but I discovered that in order to do the engineering that I want to do, I have to have my own company. Otherwise, somebody makes me do something I don't want to do. Well, I think it's important to have a very to apply critical thinking to. This may sound trite, but to apply critical thinking to what one is doing, by that I mean just the fundamentals of logic. Do you have the right axioms? Are they relevant? And are you making the right conclusions based on those axioms? That's the essence of critical thinking. And yet it is amazing how often people fail to do that. I think wishful thinking is innate in the human brain. You want things to be the way you wish them to be, and so you tend to filter information that you shouldn't filter. That's the most common flaw that I see. And then I also tend to see that people, instead of reasoning from first principles, they will tend to act in a manner. They'll do things because others are doing them, because there is a trend, or they just see everyone going in that direction, so they think that must be a good direction to go, which is sometimes correct, but then sometimes you're going to run off a cliff or something. So it's much better to really look at things from, as one would say in physics, from a first principle standpoint. What are the fundamental truths, or the most fundamental truths in an arena, and what can you, any conclusions, logic that you come to must be derived from those fundamental truths. Persistence is extremely important. You should not give up unless you're forced to give up. Unless there's no other choice. Now that principle can be misapplied if you happen to be trying to penetrate a brick wall with your head. So you have to be cautious in always saying one should always persist and never give up, because there actually are times when you should give up because you're doing something in error. But if you're convinced that what you're doing is correct, then you should never give up. There's a friend of mine who's got a good saying about starting companies, which I think is true. Starting companies is like eating glass and staring into the abyss of death. That sounds appealing. Be an entrepreneur. Physics is very helpful for figuring out whether you're violating one of the fundamental laws, like are you conserving momentum and energy? If you're not, then you probably are not going to be successful. Or if you think you're not. I think one thing, try to get to a useful prototype as soon as possible with the least amount of money. I think that's usually a good idea. I think it's important to allow for a certain amount of chaos in an organization. If you try to impose too much structure, or if you don't allow failure, if a lot of companies, particularly as they get bigger, tend to have a risk-reward asymmetry. Failure is severely punished. Success is moderately rewarded. That's not a good idea if you want to be innovative, because by its very nature, innovation will result in many attempts that don't work.